Jess Bachman from Fireteam, second time guest on my show. Here's why you are here today. We are working together on an account right now. Your creative team is in it. I am in it. Preview, it has gone well enough to where I then reached out to you about working together on another one of my accounts. And so we're just getting that going. But here's the fascinating thing about the account that we are working on, as I'm sure you have noticed as well. There are actually 4 creative agencies working on this account. This account is trying to scale up their creative production. And so we've reached out to a few different people. Those creative agencies are yours, Hire Fireteam, or I just said your Twitter profile. Fireteam is your name. Fireteam. It's like 90% of my interactions with you are on X, even if I have a direct Slack line to you now. Okay, and then mine, AJF Growth. We are both in there, and then there's 2 more who I won't name. And overwhelmingly, the top 2 spenders in the account are mine and yours. And the other ones have not done as well. Now, it's not a shot at those guys. I'm sure they do a lot of good work some places. Certainly, there's been some stuff that has worked, at least especially for one of them, for sure, right? Not trying to dog anyone. But it is a fascinating outcome because you and I think about creative extremely differently and do really, really different things with what we do. This is actually part of why I suggested to this brand they hire you, is because I said, AJF Growth is never going to make the kind of creative that Jess and Fireteam make. We're just not going to. It's just really different in a lot of different ways. And we could talk about that some if you want. Unfortunately, this client also likes to stay pretty under the radar, so we probably can't share too much detail on what those are. But I can just say, and you can confirm, that we are both doing well in terms of the spend in that account. And it's fascinating to me. The other fascinating thing about this is that you, like I said, do things extremely differently than I do at the level of volume. So I don't know if you know the answer to this, but how many assets do you think you've put into that account? Like 20?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I think we started with like 10 and then through iterations, it's probably 20. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've put in hundreds, thousands, something like that. So of your 10 or 20 or whatever that is, your hit rate in terms of spending some money in the ad account, all launched no creative testing campaigns, manual bids like that. You are getting, your ads are getting probably 70% plus of them are getting some spend, which is crazy to me. Like I have like believed
that's a hell of a batting
time.
Average. Yeah,
it is. Yeah. And this is why I try to point people towards you and have you on the show a couple of times. Is like, I know what you say is pretty different than me, but I'm watching it work. I'm like watching it work. And it just is the case that you do some things that I don't do that I think are really good. So, okay. So that's fascinating to me that you're seeing account ad spend, at those levels. My hit rate is drastically lower, but what we're really good at is producing a really high volume. And some of ours hit, a decent amount of ours hit. We'll just put anything in the account. Again, launched it with manual bids. The other last little bit of context here is that every other client or every other creative strategist in the account has also launched the same way that we do, right? Which is manual bids. So you didn't get any kind of like a bidding advantage to like tilt the scales towards Fireteam or for that matter, I don't either, even though it's like, I actually like run the media buying on this account too. Like I didn't tilt it towards me, it's just like, just try to serve the client. So it's fascinating. So here's the question that I want to spend the rest of this episode talking about after that long intro. Why do your ads work? How is it possible that you and your team are generating, whatever that hit rate is, 70% plus? And by hit rate, some of them are spending a ton, some of them are spending a little bit, but they're definitely outspending per ad. Like spend per ad is like, gigantically higher than anybody else in the account. Why do your ads work, Jess?
Well, I wish I could say I was surprised at that result, but I'm not. But I think it's 2 parts. The easy answer is that when it comes to creative, quality is paramount. And it feels like it almost feels like that's heresy based off what everyone else is talking about, where volume is paramount. But creative, like you can put 100 million ads into the market. Someone is served one impression, and that impression needs to matter, and that impression needs to do its sort of work. And so to get to that level of quality is like really complicated and really difficult. And we have a process for that. But I just want to say that quality matters. It always has, and it always will.
So why do my ads work then? I mean, I do actually think we care about quality a lot, right? I think some of them are good. Some of them are extremely simple, but I do emphasize volume quite a bit. And no, I don't know. I put out a lot of stuff about creative process, and I really believe, especially the kind of ad that we're good at, I think we're very good at. But I don't know. I mean, you could be honest with me too. If you think it's like they won't work after a little while, if you think fire team ads are going to crush all of mine, then that's fine. But yeah.
I think there's no hard and fast rules. The ads of ours that do not work, I would not say they are not quality, therefore they do not work. And I think you can absolutely achieve quality. I think a lot of it, when you run an account the way that you do, you give a lot of preference to the luck, and that happens when the algorithm term generating social feedback and those things feeding on themselves as well, and comments and that sort of thing. And I think also there are accounts where, so the first thing you need to do is, when we look at an account, is look at where things are. Look at the account in terms of stages of awareness, and look at the audience in terms of stages of awareness, and look at what the account is hitting, where spend is flowing. And a lot of times at the lower stages, where it's like product aware or solution aware, you actually don't need a lot of quality to be like, you have a headache, take this, it'll make your headache go away. There's some people who are just begging for that. And if you can run a volume play to get at that in a lot of different ways, that's ideal. That's for sure. But the more you spend, the more you do have to reach at the apples that are higher up on the tree, and you have to extend your arm. And it's harder to convince those people to give your money, to pay attention. You need to do it in very different ways. And that hardness is a place where the quality shines through, in the skill that shines through in going after those people. So when we work with brands, like we actually don't like to get involved too early, because you can have a good offer and get yourself to $30K a month in spend or something, or early product market fit or whatever. But we like brands that are spending a decent amount, but also plateauing and need something to break through. And usually that breakthrough is like, I need to reach someone else that the algo doesn't like, for whatever reason, because the creative is not going there. So I need to reorient the algo with creative that does different things, speaks a different way, and is fundamentally more persuasive for that type of person.
There's one problem with that explanation for this, which is that other creative agencies are not spending in that same account. And so what I mean is fascinating about that is like the hit rate is so much lower on those brands, and even just like dollars spent per ad, however you want to frame it, right? It's just so much lower. Like there's something going on where your ads are outperforming those other ones. And so, so there was a part of your explanation out, and it was earlier on in your comments where I was thinking like, I don't think that works in that case, because there's something that you're doing differently than what I see other people do. I don't know. I mean, I think your last comment though is really interesting, which is like sort of reaching people you weren't reaching before, stages of awareness, etc. I mean, this account is spending meaningful money on Meta, right? They're spending, they've got 7-figure month spends at points and all that. So like, there's real dollars being spent. This is a relatively mature ad account, I would say. And we've seen a bunch of growth there and all that stuff. But you talked about the idea of sort of reaching beyond what's currently happening and sort of reaching beyond the bottom funnel type customer. Now, I reject a little bit of that notion, in the sense that I can look at the impressions and reach on that account and on every other one that I run, and just like running conversion optimized, let the machine learning handle it, reaches new people. Like it just does it. This idea that like, that exactly. Right. And so, and you can sort of validate that a million different ways. This is why I really, there's sometimes when I sort of reject that explanation of things, but still, I do think you're right that there's a way in which your ads are probably, like, if creative variation is the way you reach new people, you seem to be doing that. So maybe start there a little bit more. Well, go ahead. Let's go wherever you want to go. Go ahead.
Well, the account the account has to reach new people. Are you reaching those new people efficiently because the message is aimed for those new people? And then those new people have a similar CPA than the bottom funnel people, or maybe a little bit higher, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe just really fast, we should tell people a little bit more about who you are and what you do so that people can kind of understand a little bit more. Because if they've paid attention to my content, they know about sort of how I think about creative process. Again, I don't think quality is opposed to quantity necessarily. I think it's possible to do quality at some serious quantity, but not probably the way you do it. So tell people a little bit about what Fireteam is, who you are. I said your name already, but just give them a little background. And then maybe what we can do from there is break down sort of places where brands get stagnant in their creative and how you think you help brands break through that. And we can use that as a jumping off point.
Yep. So I'm Jess. I'm the creative strategy director at Fireteam. We're about 10 people. Last year we were 5 people, so certainly growing. And we've been around for 5 years. We started working with smaller brands, as a lot of agencies do. We kind of primarily work with 8 and 9 figure brands now because those are the challenges that we sort of like to tackle. But
and they have the money.
And they have the money, and that's a point where strategy, and like not creative strategy, like the thumb stop, but like holistic account strategy, holistic brand strategy, those things will really become levers for brands at that point. Wow. And it feels like there's a little bit of a hole in the market for creative, so we used to come from a primarily a creative agency working with like friggin' Nike and Gatorade and stuff, not performance based. And then I left there, and now we're in the performance world. And like, there's this gap between when brands get to a certain size where performance is your freaking brand and how that's positioned to people. And so those are fun challenges that we're tackling at the moment.
You just heard Jess and I talk about it. I build my creative team in the Philippines. I was just with them in person with the good people at Behind the Scenes Studio. That's btsstudio.co, btsstudio.co. The link is in the show notes for that. I use BTS Studio to scale up my creative output to make a high volume of high quality edits that can do great work at the design and video edit level. If you like the way I talk about creative, if you're building the kind of creative that I'm building, then you should be using BTS Studio to do it. BTS Studio is a design and edit agency based in the Philippines, so they're affordable, really high quality workers. Like I said, I was just in person with them, and they're seeing continued new client growth because the quality is there, and really, really good retention with those clients as well. So if you are looking to scale up your design and edit team to create more ads at a high level of quality faster and at a price that is actually affordable, go to btsstudio.co. That is the way I do it. It's the way you should do it too. Yeah. Okay, that's great. People who have seen us on X probably think of us as not friends because we argue all the time. But I have definitive proof that we're friends, which is this beautiful Stokey the Bear Fireteam blanket that was sent to me as a gift this holiday. It is one of the great. This set of gifts is maybe the greatest set of like industry gifts I've ever gotten, and that's only part of it. I've also got Fireteam Against Marketing. It's having my camera's being funny with it, but Fireteam Against Marketing game. Like it's the what's the game called? Cards Against Humanity. It's the Cards Against Humanity marketing specific.
Here's one. Can you read this?
Oh man, that's so funny. Flooding the ad account with thousands of creative assets and letting algo Jesus take the wheel. That feels like that feels like a shot at me, honestly. You know, you've even got a reference to my faith in there. You know, so,
inspired. Inspired.
Yeah, great. Happy to be some help. Okay, so anyway, thank you. It's the greatest gifts ever. This blanket is like the softest thing I've ever put on ever. So it's great. Anyway, so we are definitive proof that we're friends. You sent me a gift and everything. Okay, so let's talk about where brands get stagnant on creative. Maybe I'll just pose the question to you: when brands are stagnating on their creative, when they're plateauing, why? What is happening?
I think have saturated the creative that does the easy lifting. I will like the long form explainer, which is it's not easy to make, but you can make it. And so I feel like And that's why I wouldn't even say we're frenemies or anything, because we work very well in an account. And like, I would not want to work in an account that did not have some long form explainer in it. It's just nothing that we're going to make, you know?
Yeah.
But fundamentally, we believe that people make emotional decisions. Emotions drive behavior. When you're lower stage and down funnel, and you need to check the box of, you need to like be convinced, that's where the long form explainer works. But higher stage, it is really about the emotions that drive the behavior. And what we are very good at is not using like scripts or templates or whatever, but like finding what is the emotional core of that audience that's going to get them to take action. And I'll use an example of the account we're in without mentioning them, but we have an ad that positions the difference between a tourist and a traveler. And this is, the product doesn't solve anything really, but it very much speaks to the identity of someone who wants to be a traveler and the pejorative sense that a quote unquote tourist is. And so if the ad is like, if you want to, like, you know what a tourist is, but you want to be a traveler, and this will help you do that. So like, technically that's problem solution, but the solution is their identity. And doing something like that. So that's generally, if we can't find an emotional, like we do some, there are some ads that we made for the account which is like, there's a lot of, you know, this helped a simple problem, but generally what sort of rides to the top is more the identity focused stuff.
Let me ask you about that. This is something I've thought about a lot in my own creative process, and it's something I really believe in, which is like, you want to resonate. The whole game is emotional resonance, right? Every product in some way, like you said, like that's how people make decisions. And so one of the things I've struggled with at times, I've had Sarah Levinger on a couple times to try to help me through this kind of stuff, thinking through this, but like what do you do to get at that emotional core for people? How do you guys discern that?
So it's very much a deep dive into the persona. And nowadays we're doing a lot of AI persona work to take as much data that the brand has on reviews and other stuff and build a persona, which is exactly what AI is for, you know, that level of research, and trying to internalize
Can you break that down a little? What do you do? You send the reviews through.
Yeah, we look at reviews and other scrapes of the website and stuff like that. Run it through a bunch of various complex prompts, and it generates both like the technical aspects of a persona, like these are the services that they subscribe to, these are the shows that they watch, this is the person's name, all the way down to these are the different emotional states that affect this person. Are they INTJ, whatever, that type of thing. I'm not saying that's 100% accurate, but it's better than what we had before, which was vibes, you know?
And so this is the thing I think about a lot of persona work, and I said this to Sarah actually, is that like the thing about that is you don't have to get it right. You just need a starting place to a jumping off point to make your creative. And then the performance of the creative validates the persona, right? So like as you launch the creative, if it works, then you know you're onto something. And now you can go make more like it and iterate and all those kinds of things. And so you need a starting point that gets you somewhere. You guys should release that as some kind of a standalone product or like lead gen tool or something like that. That would be a really cool thing. Just like instructions, prompts, things like that. Just like a persona maker with AI. We
talk about that every day. Yep.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I've really struggled with this issue. Like, what is the actual best way to sort of get at that information myself? And then how do you? Go ahead.
Just to add on, the great thing about having that as an AI tool is you can query the persona like it's a person. Like, what are some things? Ask like, what are some things that like make you feel good or whatever, and it can do its best job at putting that out. And again, what the output does not become the ad, but it can become the inspiration for the ad. You know?
Yeah. So, and then how do you actually use that into your process? Because now what we're talking about is, if people are stagnated because they're not speaking to people sort of at a higher level or a deeper level, or however you want to frame it, right? You got to turn that research into an ad at some point and into a script. So like, make that connection for me. What happens next?
So we try to understand the person, and then the next step is, what is the interesting, or I don't want to say like native, but like what is the emotional way to get that across? For example, we're working with a skincare brand, which I know you're very familiar with. I'm not going to say, but generally, and it's for older. It's the audience is generally older, and so
wait,
usually
is it my skin? Is it the skincare brand that I worked on? Because you can say that if so.
I don't know. You might have to beep it out. It's Bamboo Earth.
Oh, I didn't. No. Oh my gosh. You don't have to beep it. I don't think, unless Dave wants me to. Okay, I'm going to make a note to this. I'll DM Dave right now. I think it's fine. Has he said he doesn't want you talking about that?
I don't. No, he hasn't. But
okay,
we
great.
haven't. Like,
I'll DM him now. But that's great. I think we can talk about that. That's great. So they've been really public about this. I didn't know you were working on Bamboo Earth. I'm going to go look at this. Have you already launched ads for them?
No. So we're in the process. We're actually presenting on Friday. So.
Okay, great.
Hopefully this comes out later than that. But
yeah.
So, for example, like you have to not understand the problem, but you have to understand the market or the space that the customer lives in. Where skincare, particularly, everything is like you look old. This will make you look young, or very much like there's all these bags under your eyes. This will help, and people that go through that have been. But they've been betrayed over and over by getting all these promises. So just making those promises is not it. So we were thinking like, what is a way that we can say that, but is going to resonate. So we come up with this particular skit where this woman is just like, she's doing the routine and she just has this tea about this incident that happened at the store when she was shopping with her daughter, and the cashier mistook them as sisters. And she was like, my daughter was mortified. And like, for an older woman, like this is like the juiciest, this is better than someone saying you look young. This is like the ideal thing. So you put the customer in that, like while they're doing the product, and you don't have to say this will make you look young, because that is now disingenuous, but you get at it in a much more emotional and roundabout way to do something that
this is something you guys do a lot of that's different than I think what a lot of people do, which is you do a lot of these like scripted sketches. Like you have referenced using quote unquote creators, but I don't think that's what you're using. You're using actors, you're just using actors at sort of a creator level. And I don't know if they're like fully scripted, memorizing those lines, if it's all the way down to that detail, or if you're giving them like, this is basically what I need you to say and it's close enough. But like, this is a thing that really marks your creative in our space. I think that's really different than what I think a lot of other places. I've noticed this for a while with you guys, actually. It's that like, it is like little sketches. In that respect, it's much more like a traditional commercial. And in terms of what you guys do, which maybe let's just put our finger on that for a second. Why do you do that? That's got to be a choice. That's very different than the explainer, Yeah,
we do it because for the script that we write, we actually do need those words said in a certain way for it to be pulled off. We work with some creators that we do allow for a little bit more ad-libbing and stuff, but those are like trusted creators that we work with. So we do often work with actors, and side note, actors are cheaper than creators. They are more thirsty for work. And so if you like can't find the right creator, or you had bad experience with creators, go to your local theater, find local actors backstage or something. Those people can do.
Where do you find them? Is that what you do? You literally go to local theaters?
Yeah. So we have a lot of connections to local theaters. Backstage, we also find people at as well.
You know how practically every brand has like a 10% off for your first purchase if you give me your email address offer on their site? That is an offer you should be testing. And I know that because I just tested a similar offer with a client of mine using Intelligems. The client was running a site-wide offer with a stacked discount if you added more items to your cart. This client lives on AOV, lives on adding items to the cart. And so they were testing different percentages off at different thresholds of how many of their product you added to the cart. And what they found was they found an option that was producing 7% more profit per visitor by changing from the current threshold that they had to a new one that they were testing. And I know that it wasn't just a 7% increase in conversion rate. I know that it wasn't just an increase in AOV, that it was actually a profit increase because we were using Intelligems to deploy the test. So Intelligems has the capability of deploying a test like that site-wide, which is already awesome. It's actually really hard to do that kind of a test with most sort of average CRO software, and certainly way beyond what you could do back in the Google Optimized days. But but on top of that, because Intelligems measures your actual profit per order, not just your conversion rate change or anything else, you tie it into your Shopify metrics and am I actually generating more profit? Because if you're going to change something like a discount, that's a really big deal, right? So we use Intelligems to deploy that test. Huge, gigantic win. We're going to keep testing it, and you should be too. This is the kind of thing that brands do on their sites all the time. They just launch a 10% off offer because that's what somebody told them to do. But I've heard other people say the moment they buy e-commerce brands, they shut that offer down because it just eats away at profit. You don't have to guess about that kind of thing on your website. Same with your free shipping threshold, same with even your price itself. You should get Intelligems now, and you should test it. There is a link in the show notes of this episode, intelligems.io/Andrew Ferris podcast with some dashes in there, but go to that link and you can get 20% off your first 3 months of Intelligems with the code FARIS20. It's FARIS 20 to get started with Intelligems today. It is the most robust CRO software, profit-driven CRO software in e-commerce. Get it right now. Start testing. One of my takes is that like creators are terrible actors. The people who are like quote unquote creators, and so the actors you use, I think, are better than most creators. But I think
right.
Yeah.
And so there's levels to this, and we've worked with hundreds of creators regularly. We probably work with like 8. Right. who we know do the type of work, and working with creators is hard because the good ones can charge a premium. They become more expensive the more you work with them, and that is why it is very important for us to have a good relationship with creators. So for them to say yes to our work at not the premium rate. We also need to make money, and the clients also don't want to pay $600, whatever,
Right.
We're sort of leveraging our relationship to do that with the very talented.
I wonder if that would be true because I live in LA. I wonder if people would all charge $1 million, or if it's the opposite, if there's just so much glut.
Supply and demand. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yep. Yeah. Everybody wants some work. That's an interesting idea. I might need to pursue that. I should have easy access to those kinds of people, because I've definitely run into this problem of like, who do I use for a creator? Because so many of them are so bad and they're so expensive and all that stuff. Okay. Yep. Step back another stage for me really fast, which is, wait, sorry. Did you finish answering the question, about why you do the scripted actor style, sketch?
Yeah, I think it did, because we need the script to be delivered exactly how it is. Yeah. And so we just come up with very interesting ideas that need that type of support, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So, and the thing is, it's legitimately creative what you're doing too. This is another thing that marks me. Actually, one of the reasons I don't try your thing is because I'm not creative. I'm in the sense, like I make points, I'm a nonfiction essayist. That's like my communication style, which is why in my content, I can like flip on the mic and talk for 25 minutes, because that's the way I communicate and I'm used to it. But it also is the reason why I don't try to make the kind of creative you do. So I think you could probably apply some of your principles to a bunch of different styles. Maybe you disagree with that, and I'd love for you to say so if so. But actually, I still want you to step one step back, which is like, spend a little more time telling me about how you connect Avatar to that Bamboo Earth ad or whatever. Like how did you determine being perceived as younger with my skin is the thing this woman wants? Like, it's sort of obvious in skincare, but like, can you say any more about sort of what you thought about that?
Yeah, it's easy to determine that's what she wants. It's hard to determine what is the format to deliver that in a way that she's looking for. And I'll say that for the accounts that we work with, it's not just me coming up with the ideas. It's basically our entire team touches all sorts of things. And we were even having a discussion today about we had like a 30-minute discussion on what is the thing that the cashier is going to say that's going to sound like they're going to mistake her as sisters, but isn't going to sound like overly ad. And we're just tossing all sorts of back end things together. And so you do need some other people. Like it can't just be you with Claude to figure it out. You know, it takes multiple people in the room with different perspectives.
Yeah. Okay. So you think by essentially thinking about stage of awareness and where an ad account is in terms of like really trying to reach out with these emotional hooks, that's where people stagnate. They just kind of make the same very simple pitch over and over and over again in an ad account, and that sort of stagnates them. And that the answer to that, it sounds like you're saying, is to anchor to core emotional drivers a little bit more. Really, to do that, you start with research. Do you have anything else to say about how you get at this sort of like emotional core and what you're doing to develop scripts that like really speak to people emotionally? Any mistakes people make in that process? You just mentioned one, which is sort of like doing it poorly, but yeah. And anything else about that process that will help people think through how to do that for themselves?
Yeah, I think fundamentally, it's about being a human yourself and allowing you to really have empathy and project yourself into other people's situation. And where that falls apart is people will get into they will write a brief that's in Excel that has like agitation, problem, and whatever.
Right.
And once that is your process, you've abstracted all the emotion out of it, and you can't put it back in after that. So yeah, I don't know how to teach empathy or anything like that, but unfortunately for marketing at a certain level, it is a critical skill.
But say more about that. I had a conversation the other day with a client. It was actually the one we're working on together, where I was saying like, this client is a highly empathetic person. And I was thinking about this. This is going to get almost towards my faith a little bit, but I've thought about the idea of like the notion of love your neighbor as yourself, right? I've thought like, what if you sort of treated your customer as a person to be loved, not a person to be sold to? How would you communicate to them? You know,
interesting.
And it's a little close to what you're saying there, right? The idea of empathy, which is like you're just sort of coming in and saying like, what does this person really want and need? Well, like one of the things you would do, right, is you would not select absolute crap products to work on. That's one thing, right? So you would head that off at the pass, right? So then once you're working on a product that you think actually provides some value back in exchange for people's money, now you just have to communicate that. Like, I don't know, I'm just curious. When you say have empathy for people, do you think of any specifics of like how that's playing into your process?
So I think your lived experience is important. One reason why I think we're going to do good work for Bamboo Earth is because we worked on a while ago Sylvester Stallone's wife's skincare brand, which is basically like Botox, and it was. They only wanted ads which were like, "You were so ugly, this is going to help," and I did not. And that's one reason why we don't do a lot of weight loss, is because I just don't want to make people feel bad about themselves and then pitch the solution. Yeah. But I think one exercise that I found helpful, because one thing that I'm really good at is reviewing an ad and making very quick edits or suggestions or something. And then the way I do it is I am watching it. I'm like viewing an ad, but what I'm paying attention to is how I'm feeling watching the ad. Like even like the slightest hint of confusion, I notice that, put a pin in it, and then come back to it. Like, what is causing that confusion? How can I fix that? And so doing that with your ads, like watching it, but notice how you feel, and even like second by second or 5-second chunks, how you feel, and writing that down, and then figuring out why you feel that way is ultimately how you can make a lot of ads better. And then playing that will help you develop that empathetic muscle.
Yeah, that's a good start. And I actually think clarity versus confusion is a good place to start. I think the number one reason ads don't work is because they're not clear. And
agreed.
And I think many people can pick that up. Although I actually think it's very hard to communicate clearly. So but if you do that and say like, do I understand why that visual is there? Do I understand? Could I use a different visual here? This is where I think also visuals are communication. It's not just copy that's communication. It's like visuals communicate. And
yes.
And so like finding the right visual to pair with text, I think really helps. Okay. So you started to talk about the idea of like script like, Excel file sort of pre-built scripts a little bit as a problem in some ways. Now, I know exactly why those exist, which is you're trying to teach process to people internally, and there are some rules for communication.
Or sell a product.
Yeah, that
These
too,
are
right?
productized things as well.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, but also like I've tried to teach people this sometimes to say like, what am I doing? If I just break it down, what am I doing in my communication to try to communicate clearly? And there's some frameworks you can use to do that. So I'm curious to hear you say more about that. Do you have any internal SOP around how you organize a script to like get that somewhere, or does that work? Or are you sort of treating everything fresh?
Not really. In terms of
that's fascinating. That's fascinating. I mean, how are you hiring people and getting them to do it? Like, yeah.
Well, I'll say that like we do have some SOPs. So like the work we did for your client, the work we're doing for Bamboo Earth, to get to that, we have 6 meetings. 5 of them are an hour with groups of people. One of them is half an hour. The first meeting is way open. Just like we're just randomly talking about other things. What interests us about what the client said in our debrief, or what are some nuggets or whatever. The second meeting is like we're really trying to figure out what are the things we want to say, and then it's refinement from there. But the frameworks don't. It's like the frameworks factor into it, but what is not acceptable is when you're watching an ad that the frameworks are visible. Like you can see the scaffolding of the framework, and that's how it works. Like I think in the stuff we do, the frameworks are still there, but they're just kind of invisible and hidden by stuff that's more interesting,
I mean, the counter argument to that is like the people out there who just have like mastered the VSL and can just sell to the moon with that, But I think go ahead.
The VSL is the most down funnel thing on earth. Like, so I'll give an example in terms of the stage of awareness. Like we audited an account, and there's a video in there where they sell canes or something, and the founder is talking about canes and why you need a cane for about 4 minutes. And so the content of what they're saying is upper stage. They're trying to convince you to get a cane or whatever. But and this was a winning ad, the only people who are watching 4 minutes of this no-cut person with not great audio is people who are very lower stage. So, the format and like, it's the same with VSLs. The only person who is going to sit through 35 minutes of that is someone who's like almost there.
Yeah. I don't know. I've watched accounts get really big, spending a lot of money on VSLs. I think I see your point. I think in some ways I actually like communicating to that person specifically. Now it's somebody who at least is problem aware and may not be solution aware. Right. But I think one of the things that I think about some of this stuff is that people have different skill sets involved with different types of ads. And so like one of the things I always wonder when I talk to you is like, if anybody should try to do the thing that you do. But one of the things I always wonder is when I talk to you is, should people try to do your thing, or should they just hire you? Like, you know what I mean? Like what do you think about that?
So
besides, of course, they should hire you.
Well, yes, they should hire me. They should also do both. But I think a healthy, growing ad account does have 4 agencies in it, including an in-house team as well. I think the last 30 days for the account that we're on, we're getting close to 50% of spend. That's almost too much, I think, for an external partner to have. And when it gets to that level, it's like, what can we do? That's a signal that the internal side needs to get their act together, or something else. But I love competing with other agencies. No? Okay.
No.
I'll double check it. But I do love competing with other agencies, other partners, and the most ideal solution. And we do work with some 9-figure brands where that's an imperative. You can't hinge your contingency on whatever. But a good agency can make good in-house better, and good in-house can really put the screws to an agency to do better. Yeah. And so you want that type of incentive in an account.
Yeah. What do you think with all of this? Like if we're thinking about, okay, the problem of stagnation is primarily a problem of people not reaching the right new people. And if the problem of stagnation is people and is a problem of not reaching them emotionally where they're at, and they're too focused on scripts. Help people take some practical steps towards what they can do to break out of that. So maybe it starts with some customer research, building some kind of an AI tool, even if you won't share yours, to do that. What should they start? Have some empathy. What should they start doing to break out from their plateau and their stagnation? Again, besides just hiring somebody else.
That's interesting because it kind of depends on where the problem lies, determine what the solution should be. One thing that I really like about Bamboo Earth is like their customer feedback process is insane for getting that feedback and getting footage related to that. And ultimately, like the solution is in the reviews and what people are saying, not just like the problem solution, but the actual words that people are saying. The kernels are there. And so like I was just going through reviews of one of their products, and someone said they liked the product. They even used it on their grandbaby's bum that had a diaper rash. And to me, like that's not something ChatGPT would write. That is something that you need, that unique anecdote, even if it does not relate. It's not solving your friggin' acne or whatever, but you need that to break into something. Those already exist in your account somewhere. They exist in the comments of your ads. Find those, develop those into scripts, because they will feel more genuine.
Let's do it. Let's do it right now. Develop that into a script. Okay, this is a really good example. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Okay. Love it.
As a starting point. And then let's talk about something else, which is something you're focused on, which is quality at every stage of the process. When we go make the put it on my grandbaby's bum ad, right? Let's go make this a script. So use that as a jumping off point for how you think, and I won't obviously hold you to this, but like how do you think that observation turns into an actual script?
So quickly,
What's
living
next?
the life of a grandmother who is doing that. What is an anecdote or experience that's going to resonate with that person, with that older person? And I would love a scenario where, so the grandmother takes the kid for a period of time, right? They don't keep the kid permanently. So maybe they take the kid for a weekend or something. And so the kid had a rash. The parents didn't know what to do with it. They were using other stuff, but like the grandmother didn't have friggin' diaper cream. That's not generally what she has, but she put this on there and it worked. And she's telling that story. And the reason why that stuck out is because, especially with Bamboo Earth, the products are so natural. You wouldn't do that with freaking, other stuff, from CVS or something. So it's like
Sylvester Stallone's wife's Botox.
Right.
For example.
So she's talking about how she's using it, but it goes down so fast because whenever her grandkid comes over, she uses for that, but she feels comfortable doing that. And so, and then gets into the reason why she feels comfortable doing that is because you look in the ingredients and it reads like a shopping list at Whole Foods versus, something else.
That's really good. Cause there's nothing grandma is going to be more precious about than her grandbaby. Right. So it's like the ultimate validation of the ingredients. Yeah. It's like a much better way of saying, and this is a trap I get into a lot. It's a much better way of saying, these ingredients are really clean, because I can say that these ingredients are clean, but the much better way to say that is to show the person who is the person in the situation who is going to be most concerned about clean ingredients in the deepest level of emotions, because grandma loves her grandbaby more than anything in the universe.
Right. And what have they not seen before? Like you would think a before and after from sagging bags or whatever should do more work, because that's actually
this is
what they want.
A great question. What have they not seen before in a highly saturated category? Yeah, keep going. Right. Sorry.
But they have seen before. And not only have they seen before, that they probably actually tried a product that said the exact same thing. And so you can't say the same thing as other people are saying, particularly in skincare. I mean, there's a lot of products that are like novel, or supplements. A lot of people are like trying them for the first time, but like skincare, it's like, if you're 50, you've tried it all so far,
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I like that. So, okay. So that becomes, do you think that's the hook in your ad, so to speak, the hook? Like, I know maybe you reject that term, but like, do you start on that? And do you go get an actor to put that on a baby's bum?
The hook, huh? I'm not sure. I'd have to do some more thinking about what the hook is, because it also can't be a scenario like I need as a user or the viewer, I need a reason why this mother is talking to the screen. And it can't be I think it's because she's pitching. That's not it. So I need to come up with a way where it's like she has her baby on her grandbaby on her lap, and I don't know, maybe she starts with something else and then gets into this or something. But I need a plausible reason why she's talking to me right now.
Let me understand that, because what you're saying, I think, is that you need some reason for this to be on my social media feed. That is not just an ad. You essentially need to break down. You need to break down that's an ad. I
got a hook for you. I got a hook for you. Yeah, I got a hook for you.
But is it okay? But is that why? Because you want to break down it's an ad, I'm skipping it instinct.
Yes. Yeah. That's only part of it.
Yeah. Okay.
So if she's like, I'm 50 and I don't usually give parenting advice, anymore, but I have to tell you about what just happened.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. That feels very social. Okay. That's really good. Yeah. I know. Yeah. One of them. Yeah. I could think of a bunch of stuff I've seen you do that are like that. That's really clever. It's an interesting way to think about a hook. Instead of thinking about it as clickbait, what you're thinking about it as like, what is the reason somebody makes a piece of social content in the first place? And then you have to take that as the pathway into the content of the ad. That's really clever. I like that. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try and think about, I think I do try that, but I think I'm going to try with that explicit framework. Okay. Let's talk about quality a little bit. This is something I've heard you say in a lot of places, which is that an ad can go wrong in a million different ways. I've heard you say that the ad can go wrong at the level of script. It can go wrong at the level of actor. It can go wrong at the level of edit. I don't know if there's some places you think ads do go wrong in those phases a lot, or just sort of what's your perspective on that? Is this where people mess up a lot?
Yeah, it is. So you can, and don't get me, you can make not great ads that are top spenders in the account. That's what I'd call like the local maxima. But a lot of times as you're growing, you need to be better than your competitor's top ad in their account. And so that is where the pieces really need to come together. And sometimes a B- ad is not it. And so, so it's the script, the talent, and the edit. And so it's where this all starts to fall apart is when you're thinking of ad production from an efficiency standpoint and you are optimizing for efficiency. And the reason why you might be doing that is because you are in a volume state of mind, or you're doing that, or you're just sort of can't afford it or something. But once you and you should always think about efficiency. Like we don't want to pay creators a ton of money too, especially when they haven't been proven. But it is not at the forefront of our mind when we're not trying to save $50 on an ad and then hope it spends $100,000. That just doesn't work,
Yeah. I mean, the counter argument to me to that is that you're playing a different game than a lot of people are, which is that you are trying to hit on a much lower percentage of ads. I mean, you're spending way. I've watched people who I've talked about you guys to be like, wait a minute, how much am I spending per ad? And it's like, compared to what I do, it's like drastically higher. And I do think there's a thing where there's different ways to get here. Like, again, I'm watching every client I've worked with at this point has made it from 7 figures to 8 figures and is now scaling still. And I'm watching that happen in part by just doing the thing we do at a level of quality that we do it at, while also trying to maximize efficiency in the process by using some tools to make it happen, And I think there's a way where you can make ad production so cheap and fast. But again, I don't want to just make it say cheap and fast. Like, I think you can still make it good. My editing team, I think, is very good. And I think that they do really good. They have strong resumes. Like, they know what they're doing, And at one point, a client came back to me and said, I don't know, I don't like the edits on this. And it just doesn't look as good as others. And I'm not sure, they know that I'm working in the Philippines. Like, I'm just not sure if that talent is there or whatever. And I went back and said, hold on. Give me the feedback you want of what you have in mind. It was a client where they clearly had an idea of what they wanted in their mind. And we weren't doing it that way because I didn't think it would work, So I said, we'll make some that way. We'll test it. I definitely could be wrong. And they delivered immediately on, and they were slicker and all these things, but it just wasn't what we were doing because I didn't think it would matter, So it's just one of these things where I'm very slow, as you probably know, to call something a both and situation.
Yeah.
I think there's a right way a lot more often than a lot of people do, You and I have clashed over that at times in the past. But in this case, I actually think there is. Like, I think there's sort of like a place for both of these kinds of approaches where you can build something where you can build at a reasonable quality level, maybe not as good as what you guys do. I don't have a problem saying that, or with attention to details like you do. And at the same time, that there's a place for the thing you're doing as well. And that the mistake people make is just thinking like, this is it, or this is it. When in fact, like we've talked about, right? Like, what I actually want to do is get you into the accounts that I'm working on. I'll do my thing and you do your thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, you need to do both. You need to do, at a certain size, the imperative to do both is more important. And I'll also just say, side note, it's the efficiency and cheap thing is not onshore versus offshore. Like, you found excellent offshore talent. Hold on to those people. Keep doing it. That's the ideal scenario.
Yeah. Okay. I'm curious in the edit process. What do you think people get wrong in the edit process? What do you guys do well that you think other people get wrong?
So just like in the ideation hits multiple people, we have a Slack channel where the edit goes into, and everyone at least has the opportunity to participate in that particular edit. I think I think one issue that people do is they don't make edits. They aren't critically watching it and understanding how it could be better or whatever. It's so rare for an ad to come through on the first pass that we then pass to the client. Like, there's almost always one round of edits, sometimes more. And so that's just part of the process, and it needs to be, and developing the skill to make edits is a little bit different than the skill to like come up with ideas and stuff. And so you need to be able to do that as well.
So you think part of that is just taking the time to do it, essentially? Just like making sure that you're actually doing it. It's not a problem that people are doing it wrong so much as they're just not doing it.
Yeah. Or, people might not have, if you are not an editor, you might not have the skills to know that, like, hey, can we like speed ramp this, or can we cut, these seconds out or something? So you might not be able to give that feedback to an editor after you get the shot back. And so, if you can't, the reason why people hire editors is because they can't edit. I'm like a generalist in terms of creative, so I can do a lot of these different things. And our internal editor will also give feedback on our external editors as well. So there's just layers of feedback that can happen. The efficiency part is doing that very quickly, and I'm a huge process guy. So doing that in a situation where it doesn't bog everything down is where our efficiency comes in, and where our costs are kept down.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you guys have some of the best creative process I've ever seen. Like, on your last episode that you did with me, you were talking through some of that and showing some Notion cards or something like that. And it was like astounding to me how detailed it was and how well done it was, and I think you told me that was just scratching the surface. So people should go watch and listen to that. It'll be linked in the show notes as well, or just search Andrew Ferris, Jess Bachman, you'll find it. Okay, let's see. We're about out of time. Is there anything that I missed in this conversation that you think people should hear?
Yeah, man, there's so much that you missed. I think we should do a third episode.
I'm completely down. So let's definitely make it happen.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Go work with Jess. Jess, where should people do that?
Fireteam.is is our website. Everyone says it's the best website ever, so check it out.
It is a great website. People should go look at it. You can also reach out to @HireFireTeam on X, which is where most of our interactions are. If you follow us both, you'll probably see us argue about something at some point. And yeah, man, this is really great. Let's keep smashing. I'm excited to see what happens. Maybe at some point we'll get me, you, and Dave on if you guys crush for Bamboo Earth, and we'll do some ad breakdowns or something like that because they've been pretty public with stuff. So
yeah, put it on the calendar. I'm sure we will.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I absolutely loved that episode. I love talking to Jess. Anytime I get to do it, we will do a third episode at some point because he's just always got really good things to say. So make sure you subscribe wherever you're watching or listening so that you don't miss out on that. When it happens, we pretty for sure will actually do that. I also have a bunch of good episodes coming up, some more interviews, including Jeremiah Premer from No Commerce, just a great guy with all kinds of data in our space that nobody else really has. Aaron Orndorff coming soon. Always great to talk to Aaron. I've got Olivia Corey from House Analytics to talk incrementality. That's going to be a great conversation. Shireen Albert, one of my very favorite guests to ever have on this show, because I think it'll be her third time on the show, because she's hilarious and she's also extremely brilliant, and I just giggle and also learn things the whole time. Don't forget to also reach out to me at ajfgrowth.com for everything that I'm doing. You can email me at podcast@ajfgrowth.com or follow me on X at Andrew J. Ferris. Do follow Jess as well at Hire Fire Team and go work with those guys. And don't forget to follow up with my sponsors. That's BTS Studio, behind the scenes studio, btsstudio.co, to get working on a design and edit team for your e-commerce brand, for your agency. They can do both of that kind of work. And also, of course, Intelligems to do CRO testing. Test your site-wide offer. Test it right now. And don't forget to use the code Ferris20 to get 20% off your first 3 months. Thanks so much for watching or listening. I'll talk to you next time.